Heartwarming Caregiver discovered incredible secret. Elderly woman's son is a millionaire CEO. Maggie stood by the kitchen table, the soft patter of rain drumming against the window. A scent of lavender hung in the air as she sifted through a box of dusty photographs with Mrs. Henderson. The elderly woman smiled, her weathered hands grasping a faded image of a younger version of herself, vibrant and proud in her military uniform. With every picture, laughter and memories spilled into the room, but for Maggie, the heaviness of her own reality loomed large. "Look at that one, dear." Mrs. Henderson chuckled, her eyes sparkling. "I remember that day. We gave a speech at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And then the warmth of nostalgia wrapped around them like a cozy blanket until a letter slipped out from underneath the pile of photographs." As Maggie picked it up, her heart raced. It was an ordinary envelope, but inside, she found something extraordinary. A letter addressed to Mrs. Henderson from her son, Richard, revealing he was a millionaire CEO in the tech industry. She could hardly breathe. How could someone raised by Mrs. Henderson, who faced life's struggles with unwavering grit, end up with such wealth? Maggie's chest tightened with a mix of admiration and resentment. Richard had escaped the very world Maggie struggled in daily. Here she was, stuck in a modest apartment, juggling dreams of nursing while making barely enough as a caregiver. The weight of her family's expectations pressed down on her. Why not get a real job? They'd ask. She cared, she loved, but could that ever be enough? The rain intensified outside, mirroring the storm brewing inside Maggie. "I need to tell him," she murmured, looking at Mrs. Henderson, whose gentle smile faded at the thought of her son's absence. It felt wrong, but as Mrs. Henderson's health began to wane, the pressure mounted. In a moment of desperation, she dialed Richard's number, her hands shaking. Mag, hi. Who is this?" Richard's voice sounded distant, detached from the everyday realities Maggie lived. When she explained who she was, a silence fell, thick with years of separation and unspoken words. "I'll come," he finally said, a hint of hesitation lacing his voice. When Richard arrived at the small home, the air was thick with unresolved family tensions. Maggie stood to the side, a quiet observer as long-buried resentments surfaced. Richard's polished exterior clashed with Mrs. Henderson's weathered heart, each accusation more painful than the last. Everything, from Richard's success to Mrs. Henderson's loneliness, was laid bare. Caught in the whirlwind, Maggie felt torn. Should she defend Mrs. Henderson's heart or confront Richard's choices? As a nurse's instinct spiraled within her, she knew their family needed healing, not just for Mrs. Henderson but for the reconciliation that was long overdue. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maggie leaned in, her heart pounding. She had shown loyalty, commitment, and love to Mrs. Henderson, embodying everything that made life worth living. Would Richard see that, or would his wealth keep him blind? But just then, a comment from an unexpected visitor disrupted their fragile emotions. A truth about Maggie's own family flickered into view, shattering her determination. Would she fight for her dreams among the wreckage? The answer danced on the edge of clarity, just out of reach, as she stood at the crossroads of love and loyalty. The confrontation hung heavy in the air, a mix of grief and anger swirling around them like the storm outside. Maggie could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing down, suffocating dreams and hopes alike. She watched Mrs. Henderson's face, the lines of her skin deepening as she struggled with her emotions. It was more than just the years that had etched their stories into her visage. It was a lifetime of love, sacrifice, and disappointment laid bare. Richard shifted uncomfortably, his polished shoes scuffing against the worn wooden floor as if he felt the weight of his financial success clash against his mother's humble home. "I didn't choose this life," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice trembled slightly, revealing just a hint of vulnerability beneath the bravado. I had to leave. I thought it would help. That's all you ever thought about? Mrs. Henderson's voice cracked, a mix of sorrow and fury. You ran away from me, from this family. You decided that money was the answer, but it hasn't brought you happiness, has it? Each word felt like a dagger, but it was the truth that could no longer be hidden. Maggie's heart ached as she listened to them. Richard was a stranger in a suit, while Mrs. Henderson was an embodiment of strength, resilience, and maternal love. She was caught in the crossfire, desperate to soothe the hurt but unsure how to bridge such a chasm. I didn't want to leave you, Richard shot back, his voice rising. I was scared. I thought by making something of myself, I could somehow. He paused, his facade cracking further. I thought it would make you proud. Proud? Mrs. Henderson scoffed. You think riches can make up for the time lost? For the years I spent wondering why you wouldn't come home? Money can't fill that void. Maggie's chest tightened. She had felt that void, too, every day as she poured her heart into caring for Mrs. Henderson. You say you love your mother, Richard, but where have you been all this time? She found herself interjecting, her voice steady and low, yet confident. Richard's gaze shifted to her, momentarily caught off guard. Who are you to judge? He shot back, but beneath the harshness, she detected an underlying defeat. Just someone who knows what it's like to care, Maggie replied, letting her heart spill into her words. To show up when it counts. Your mom needs you now, not just your money. For a moment, the room fell silent once more. Richard's gaze softened but then hardened again, revealing a turbulent inner struggle. Would he finally choose to step beyond the wealth he clung to? Or would he retreat back into the comfortable walls of his success, missing the chance to reconnect with the love and family he had lost? Suddenly, Mrs. Henderson reached for Maggie's hand, squeezing it tightly. The touch ignited something in Maggie, a fierce determination. It wasn't just Mrs. Henderson's strength on the line, it was Richard's chance at redemption too. I never wanted anything but to be a part of your life. Mrs. Henderson's voice trembled but held a quiet strength. But now, all I want is to see you here with me before it's too late. As the last word hung in the air, Maggie felt an urgency, a culmination of emotions desperate for resolution. Richard faced his mother, the storm raging outside mirroring their turmoil, and for a moment, it felt as if hope flickered into existence. Maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild what had been broken, but then, before any new words could form, a loud knock echoed through the house, shattering the fragile tension. Richard recoiled, his brows furrowed, while Maggie's heart raced. Who could it be? Would this unexpected visitor help bring them closer or further tear them apart? The question lingered, heavy in the rain-soaked air. The knock reverberated like a thunderclap, loud and jarring against the backdrop of their fraught silence. Richard and Mrs. Henderson exchanged bewildered glances, both clearly startled by the intrusion. Maggie's heartbeat quickened, her stomach knotting with uncertainty. She hadn't anticipated anyone else entering this charged moment. Who could that be? Mrs. Henderson murmured, a frown knitting her brow. She glanced out the nearby window, rain streaking against the glass, distorting the outside world into a blur. Instinctively, she tightened her grip around Maggie's hand, as if seeking reassurance. Richard straightened, squaring his shoulders as though preparing to face a challenge. I'll get it, he said, his voice clipped. The weight of his mother's gaze hung on him, a silent plea for connection overshadowed by a worried presentiment. As Richard moved toward the door, Maggie tried to keep hold of that flicker of hope that had momentarily ignited in the room. But it felt so fragile, like the delicate creatures that flit away with sudden movements. When Richard opened the door, the wind howled in, swirling rain into the warmth of the living room. A man stood there, drenched and disheveled, his face a mask of urgency. Is this the Henderson residence? He asked breathlessly, momentarily taken aback by the scene before him. Richard's brows furrowed. Yes, who are you? The man stepped forward, shaking off droplets like a dog. "I'm here about your mother, Mrs. Henderson," he said, his voice low and intense. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Maggie's stomach lurched. What could possibly be so urgent? She glanced at Mrs. Henderson, who looked crestfallen and afraid. "Come in, please," Richard said, his tone shifting from defensive to accommodating. He stepped aside, allowing the stranger to enter. As the man stepped inside, Maggie took a quick inventory of him: muddy boots, a rain-drenched coat clinging to his tall frame, and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Her instincts told her immediately that he wasn't just an ordinary visitor. The man paused, soaking in the atmosphere, sensing the tension woven through the room. "I'm sorry to intrude like this," he continued, addressing both Richard and Mrs. Henderson now, "but I've been looking for you. It's about your son." Richard tensed, and Maggie felt the air thicken. "What do you mean?" he demanded, but the rawness of his voice exposed the vulnerability beneath his bravado. "There's more to him than you may realize. I work for a charity organization," and the man's words hung in the air, but he was cut off by Mrs. Henderson's fierce grip on Maggie's hand. "What do you mean? My Richard?" He opened his mouth to respond but paused, eyeing the emotional storm brewing in the room. "It's complicated," he finally admitted. "But I think you deserve to know the truth. And it involves more than just financial success." Maggie's breath caught in her throat. Every eye fixed on the man, potential revelations spiraling in their minds. What truth could be so significant that it would shift the very foundation of what they believed about Richard? The rain drummed harder against the windows. Lights flickered above as the tension weighed heavier. What revelation lay ahead, ready to transform the relationships tangled in years of hurt? With all their hearts in their throats, the room awaited the answer, poised on the brink of understanding. The stranger took a deep breath, his gaze darting between Richard and Mrs. Henderson. "Your son has been doing remarkable work for those less fortunate. It's not just charity, it's a full-scale mission." His voice softened, feeling the gravity of the situation. "He has devoted his life to helping people, and your family deserves to know the incredible mark he is leaving on the world." Richard's expression twisted in disbelief. "Are you saying he is not just a businessman? That he is someone important?" His voice was barely above a whisper, almost pleading for validation. "Yes," the man responded earnestly. "But it's more than just his career. There are layers to Richard's life that you haven't seen. He has battled issues you can't even begin to imagine. And now, he is at a crossroads. He needs you." Mrs. Henderson's grip on Maggie tightened, her nails digging into the soft flesh. "What do you mean he needs us? If he is doing so well, how can he need us?" Her voice cracked, revealing the walls of doubt and fear she had constructed over the years. "Because the pressure of it all has taken a toll. He has hidden his struggles, thinking he could shield you from them. But he is losing himself in this world he created. He has reached out to us for help, but he fears coming home." Maggie felt her heart racing. She glanced again at Mrs. Henderson's pale face, her eyes now sparkling with a mix of hope and worry. "What do we do? We can't just sit here while he is out there fighting battles alone." Richard shook his head, frustration brewing like storm clouds. "What are we supposed to believe? If he is successful, if he has all this power, then why hasn't he told us about it?" Tension filled the room yet again, but this time it was layered with a hint of possibility. The man moved closer, his voice steady and direct. "Because guilt can be a choking fog. They did not have the resources or support before. It means everything to him to keep you safe." "Safe?" Mrs. Henderson echoed, confusion clouding her features. "From what?" "From his past. From the mistakes he made trying to build this empire he has created. It weighs heavily on him. The truth is, it's not just about money. It's about acceptance, forgiveness, family." The man's voice caught slightly with raw emotion at the last word. Maggie glanced at Richard. His face was a whirlwind of emotion, confusion, anger, sorrow. So what, we just wait for him to come back? No, the man replied, urgency coursing through his words. We need to reach out. He needs to know that he's not alone in this. You all need to show him he can belong again, that family still means something. The room held its breath. The rain pounded outside, drowning out the silence that settled over them. Would Richard open up to this newfound truth? Could they bridge the distance that had grown over the years? Maggie felt the weight of her own fear, uncertain of how to even begin to mend the rift that had divided them all. Richard stared at the stranger, and for a moment, hope flickered in his eyes. It was tiny but powerful, like a flame daring to break through darkness. We have to find him, he said finally, resolve planting seeds of courage in his chest. We can't lose him again. But did they have what it takes to confront the truth? What lay ahead as they ventured into the unknowns of their family's past, full of secrets and remorse? As the rain continued to pour, they stood at a crossroads, ready to embark on a journey that would test their bonds and reveal just how far they had to go to reclaim their son before it was too late. The stranger's presence hung in the air, charged with urgency. Richard's heart quickened. He needed to find a way to reach his son. How do we get in touch with him? He questioned, his voice gaining strength. The man paused, weighing his words. I can help you, but you have to be ready. This journey will demand vulnerability and honesty. Are you prepared to face what you might uncover? Mrs. Henderson swallowed hard, her fear evident. What do you mean by that? Richard stepped closer, determination igniting his spirit. We can handle the truth. Whatever it takes. Maggie looked between them, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. It's time we break down these walls. We deserve to know him, all of him. Exactly, the stranger said, nodding thoughtfully. You've got to understand, it won't just be about bringing him home. He'll have to confront the mistakes he has made, the burdens he has carried alone for too long. And in turn, you'll have to do the same. Richard clenched his fists, emotions surging. We've dealt with our own demons, believe me. We can do this together. Mrs. Henderson's eyes glimmered with unshed tears. I always thought we were protecting him by staying silent. But maybe we've just pushed him away. The stranger stepped back, pulling out his phone. Let me call him. It's time to bridge the distance. Maggie's breath caught. The reality of the moment set in. They were on the brink of something significant. Richard felt a mix of hope and dread. What if they reached out, and it changed everything? The stranger began dialing, his face focused. Just remember to take it slow. Let him know you care. Suddenly, the line connected, and an invisible energy coursed through the room, binding them together in anticipation. Hello, Richard, came the voice from the phone. It was deep and familiar, laced with an undertone of weariness. Richard's voice broke as he responded, It's me. We need to talk, it's urgent. Are you okay? A brief silence fell. The tension in the room thickened. Mrs. Henderson clutched Maggie tighter, her nails almost breaking the skin. I'm fine. Why are you? The voice faltered, uncertainty evident. We need you to come home, Richard said, each word heavy with meaning. Your family is here, and we're ready to listen. No more hiding. Tension hung in the air as everyone held their breath, waiting for the response. Home. The word lingered in the silence, echoing with weight. Yes. We miss you. And it's not too late to come back. Richard sounded brave, though he felt vulnerable. There was another pause, and Maggie could see the stranger leaning in, listening intently to the one-sided conversation. I can't. The voice finally broke. Maggie's heart sank, and her mother's grip tightened around her wrist. Please don't say that. Just give us a chance. More silence. Maybe I can do that, the voice said, wavering. But it's going to take time. I'm not sure I can face everything. Richard nodded, although the other side couldn't see. Take all the time you need, but know that we're here. Now and always. As they hung up, the room felt charged with unspoken promises. Hope flickered in the air, waiting to be nurtured. But still, uncertainty itched at the edges. Would Richard truly find the strength to confront the past? As they shuffled quietly around the room, a new possibility loomed. Their son was alive, but would he choose to come home? Time would tell, and they were prepared to wait for his return. The rain drummed against the window, but the somber mood began to shift, making way for something new. But as they exchanged hopeful glances, a distant siren wailed outside, piercing the fragile peace, and uncertainty loomed once again. What awaited them when they opened their hearts? The room sat heavy with unresolved feelings, each heartbeat signaling the weight of their words. Richard paced, trying to sort through the chaos in his mind. Maggie and her mother exchanged glances, their minds racing in tandem. Did we do the right thing? Maggie finally whispered, her voice barely rising above the sound of the rain hitting the window. He needs us, Richard said, trying to sound sure, though his heart betrayed him. We shouldn't have waited this long. But what if he can't come back? Mrs. Henderson's voice cracked, full of worry. It's been years of silence. Each word hung heavily, an echo that filled the empty spaces of their home. Richard turned to face his wife and daughter. No more silence. We have to be brave enough to face whatever this is, whatever he has been through. The stranger, who had brought this moment to fruition, remained quietly observing. His presence felt like a steadying stone amidst the emotional tide. You've taken a huge step. Just remember, reaching out was only the beginning. Healing takes time, sometimes it requires tackling the hardest parts first. Richard felt the truth in those words, the complexity of reconnecting after years apart. What if he shuts us out again? Maggie stepped forward, her brow furrowed with determination. I'd rather try and fail than stay in this dark place of not knowing. We owe it to him and to ourselves. The stranger leaned against the wall with a knowing smile. Your son may surprise you. People change, grow, and adapt in ways you can't predict. Storm clouds gathered outside, mirroring the blend of anxiety and hope swirling within the living room. Richard glanced again at the window, that distant siren fading into the night. What if he's not the same anymore? He's still your son, Mrs. Henderson replied with a soft, loving strength. A part of him is still with us. We just have to find a way to reach it. Their conversation hung in the air like a fragile thread, woven through shared memories and unvoiced fears. Richard exhaled slowly, a glimmer of resolution lighting his eyes. You're right. He is our boy. And we will find a way. Hours passed, but the stillness was broken only by the rhythm of the rain and the occasional murmur among them. Finally, the stranger spoke up again. I can help you prepare for his return. Maybe we can think of some things to say. Richard interrupted, no. It's not about rehearsed lines or perfect timing. It's about honesty. Even if it hurts. Just then, Maggie's phone buzzed on the table, causing all heads to turn. She reached for it, her heart racing at the unexpected reminder. After reading the notification, her breath caught in her throat. It's a message from him, she stammered. He replied. The air went still, the possibility hanging in the air like a fragile balloon ready to burst. Richard felt his pulse quicken, the tension building. What does it say? Mrs. Henderson asked, leaning closer, her eyes wide. Maggie's fingers trembled as she opened the message, a mix of fear and excitement washing over her. It says, he's agreed to meet, but only if we can promise him one thing. The silence became a whisper, anticipation thick in the air. Her voice dropped to a hush. He wants us to come as we are, no pretending. He just wants the truth. Richard's heart began to race, matching the heartbeat of a family on the edge of a momentous change. We can do that, but the real question is, are we ready for what the truth will bring? As the rain continued its relentless dance against the windows, a flicker of something new began to emerge from the depths of their uncertainty. They had begun this journey together, but now the stakes felt higher than ever. Just then, a flash of lightning lit up the room, briefly illuminating their faces. With that light came a sudden thought: was it truly possible to face the truth without losing each other? They would find out soon enough. The dim light in the room cast shadows on Richard's worried face. He glanced at Maggie and Mrs. Henderson, their eyes filled with anticipation and fear. The message from their son had cracked open a door they thought was rusted shut. When and where? He asked, urgency sharpening his voice. Maggie read over the message again, trying to absorb the weight of it all. He wants to meet tomorrow at the cafe down the street. Noon, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Mrs. Henderson pressed her hand to her chest. That's just hours away, she breathed. What should we do? Richard held up a hand to steady the tremor that quivered through his family. We prepare, he declared. And we talk. We've got to be open, honest, and ready for anything. The air hung thick and electric as they shared their fears, hopes, and memories. In the fluttering silence, it occurred to them that their casual conversations about which coffee they preferred or what color to paint the living room seemed so insignificant now. Now, they were staring down the reality of potentially facing a stranger wearing their son's face. Does he even want to be here? Maggie questioned, her voice barely above a whisper. Of course he does, Richard insisted, trying to quell the storm of doubt. We're his family. But what if he hates us? Maggie snapped, her frustration bubbling over. What if he sees us as the people who turned our backs? Her raw vulnerability echoed in the room. Mrs. Henderson took a step closer, wrapping her arms around Maggie. Sweetheart, we may have made mistakes, but love, she said softly, love is never wrong. We just need to show him that it's still there. Richard nodded, feeling an aching pressure in his heart. We're putting it all on the table. We'll tell him that we're sorry for the silence and that we've missed him every day. Maggie wiped her eyes, drawing strength from her mother's presence. What if he doesn't see it that way? What if he still thinks we won't understand? Then we listen. No matter what he says, we have to hear him out, Richard replied, conviction tightening in his voice. This is his moment. We have to be ready. As they planned through the nights ahead, thoughts of their son filled the quiet spaces in the room. As the rain tapped a gentle rhythm outside, they paced through the questions that churned in their hearts. Richard finally turned back to Maggie. Do you think he might have changed beyond recognition? It's possible, Maggie said, instinctively fiddling with the hem of her sweater. But he's also the same boy who built forts in the living room during storms, remember? Yeah, Richard smiled, a flicker of hope lighting his features. We'll bring that boy back. We will. Just as they settled into a quiet determination, a sharp clap of thunder vibrated through the room. It startled them, causing them to exchange glances filled with instinctive dread. What if we lose him again? Mrs. Henderson murmured. Then we keep trying, Richard said, steely resolve replacing uncertainty. We have to. Tomorrow would be a new chapter. But as they prepared for their meeting, the question loomed larger than ever: what if the truth they uncovered was more painful than the silence that had haunted them for years? They held hands tightly, readying themselves for whatever awaited, as the rain continued its chorus outside, washing away the past. The next day would not just be a meeting, it would be a confrontation with everything they'd feared most. Tomorrow felt like the edge of a precipice. And on that edge, the fragile balance between hope and despair rested. Would they be the family he needed? Or would their worst fears come true? Morning light streamed through the kitchen window, a stark contrast to the heavy shadows of the night before. Richard rubbed the sleep from his eyes, the weight of the impending meeting still heavy on his mind. He glanced over at Maggie, her face buried in her hands, lost in thought. Mrs. Henderson, ever the nurturer, was already bustling around, filling the air with the warm scent of coffee brewing. Are you two ready? She asked, her tone both tender and authoritative. Richard managed a nod but felt the tightening in his chest. We will be. We just need a moment. Maggie finally lifted her head, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. What if he walks in and looks at us like we're strangers? Like we don't belong? Then we remind him of who we are, Richard said softly, stepping closer to take her hands in his. He may not be the boy we remember, but we'll show him we're still his family. They shared a moment of silence, thoughts spiraling around their fears and hopes. Mrs. Henderson returned with coffee, placing a steaming mug in front of each of them. Take a sip. It'll help clear your mind, she encouraged, her own composure reflecting the strength she hoped to pass along, but the moment was interrupted by a jarring text tone from Richard's phone. It was a reminder of the meeting time. He stared at it in disbelief, every second counting down like a ticking clock. We should get going, he said, the words coming out more brusquely than intended. Maggie nodded, fear written all over her face. What if he doesn't want anything to do with us? What if he walks out before we can even speak? We won't let fear dictate this moment, Richard replied, determination causing his heart to race. They had to confront this head-on, to jump into the unknown together. As they left the house, the sky seemed to reflect their uncertainty. Clouds loomed ominously, threatening rain, mirroring the storm brewing in their hearts. They arrived at the cafe early, a small, cozy place bustling with life, laughter, and conversations. Yet, amidst the clatter of dishes and the cheerful chatter, a bubble of silence wrapped around their small family. Here we are, Mrs. Henderson said, her voice steady yet shaky. Richard's heart pounded as he caught sight of the clock ticking steadily toward noon. He's late, he murmured. Maggie leaned closer to her father, her breath pooling in quiet anxiety. What if he doesn't show? Just then, the bell above the cafe door chimed. Richard's head whipped around. A figure stood hesitant at the entrance, drenched in the soft light. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. A young man looked around, hazel eyes darting from table to table until they landed on their table. It was like staring into a mirror that reflected a version of their son, older, but still familiar in the way he carried himself. Suddenly, the warmth and comfort they craved felt like an icy grip around their hearts. Mom. The young man called out, his voice trembling with uncertainty. The sound felt painfully distant and intimate at the same time, like it could break them or bring them together. Richard felt Maggie squeeze his hand. They had crossed the divide. But how would they bridge the emotional gap created by years of silence? Would this moment bring healing or heartbreak? Right here, sweetheart, Maggie managed to say, her voice wavering. And just like that, the most crucial moment of their lives was unfolding. With every heartbeat echoing in his ears, Richard wondered what each of them would say and whether they were truly prepared for the truth that lay ahead. As the young man approached, uncertainty painted on his face, tension crackled in the air like the thunder that had rattled their home the night before. Was this the reunion they had longed for, or just another disappointment masked in hope? In that loaded moment, they all held their breath, teetering precariously on the edge of resolution and a lifetime of regret. What words would break the silence? And would they unite them or shatter their fragile connection just as easily? The young man stepped closer, hesitance battling familiarity. His features were sharper, more defined, but his eyes, those were unmistakably the same. Time had fashioned him into someone new, yet the shadow of the boy they had lost still flickered behind those hazel depths. Do you? He started, his voice trailing off as he seemed to wrestle with his thoughts. Do you still love me? The question rippled through the air, heavy with meaning. Maggie's breath caught in her throat. She felt a swell of emotion that threatened to overflow. She could only nod, tears spilling down her cheeks. Richard squeezed her hand tighter, grounding both of them in that moment. Always, son. We never stopped loving you. The young man blinked, visibly grappling with this affirmation. Then why did you let me go? That stung. They had both prepared countless speeches, rehearsed the perfect lines for this very moment, but nothing could shield them from that raw, jagged truth. "We thought," Maggie began, her voice breaking. "We thought it was best. We didn't know how to help you, or what you needed or what I wanted," he interjected, frustration and sorrow mingling in his tone. Richard felt the air grow thick with tension. The cafe bustled around them, life moving on, yet they felt locked in this fragile bubble, time suspended. "We made mistakes," he admitted, sincerity pouring from his eyes. "We thought we were doing the right thing. And you didn't even try to find me." His voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that demanded acknowledgement. Maggie shook her head, the pain etched across her face. "We didn't know where to look. We thought you needed space," Richard added, desperately trying to bridge the chasm. But then time just slipped away. Their son ran a hand through his hair, frustration morphing into anguish. "I was drowning, and you didn't even know." The words were a dagger, sharp and true. Maggie choked on a sob, searching for any sign of understanding in his expression. "Please, just look at us. Tell us how we can fix this." The young man looked at them, confusion and hurt flashing across his face. Could trust be rebuilt in one conversation? Could they wipe away years of emptiness with a few shared breaths? "Fix it?" he echoed, bitterness lacing his words. "You can't just fix it." His voice cracked, echoing his raw emotions. Richard felt a yearning inside him, a desperate need to say something profound and sobering. "What if we start with the truth? Not just your truth, but ours too. We've all been carrying scars. Maybe facing them together can help." He held his gaze steady, hoping to kindle a flicker of connection again. The cafe around them felt dimmer as the silence deepened, each heartbeat a reminder of how far they had fallen. Maggie wiped her tears with trembling fingers. "Just tell us who you are now, what you've become. We want to know you really know you." The young man seemed to wrestle with his thoughts, eyes glazing over with emotion. "I don't know if I can. I'm not the person you think I am. I've made choices." Despair settled over Richard like a dark cloud, and he felt the weight of the past crashing against the fragile hopes they had built. "Then let us in," he urged softly. "Show us what has been hidden." In that moment, they all stood at the precipice of truths long buried. Would this day bring healing, or would it simply revive old wounds? As uncertainty hung in the air like a dense fog, Richard realized that this journey ahead was only beginning. What choices awaited them, and could they really face whatever lay beneath the surface? Richard's heart raced as he felt the weight of each unspoken word loitering between them like an ominous shadow. It was almost unbearable. The cafe hummed with its usual chatter, but for Richard, the world outside had faded, leaving only the three of them suspended in the gravity of the moment. The young man's face transformed under the weight of their gaze, hesitance mingling with a flicker of hope. "You want the truth?" he said, the words taut with emotion. "Fine. The truth is I've made mistakes. Big ones. Ones that nearly broke me." He had grown up too fast in a world filled with expectations he felt he could never meet. Maggie held her breath. "We want to hear it. All of it." The young man looked down, gathering his thoughts. "After I left, I craved freedom, but with that freedom came loneliness. I thought success would fix everything, but instead, I found myself caught in a cycle of guilt and despair. The more money I made, the more I lost myself in it. I thought you'd be proud of me, but I was wrong. It's hard being out there knowing I could have been home." Tears welled in Maggie's eyes. "We didn't know how to find you either. We missed you every moment. Every day felt empty without you. We thought you were happier away from us." "No." He shot back, frustration spilling over. "I was scared and ashamed. I didn't want to face you because I doubted I could ever live up to what you wanted from me." Richard leaned forward, determination surging through him. "You don't have to live up to anyone's expectations. You just have to be you. That's all we ever wanted. We never stopped loving you. We know we failed you in our silence, in our distance. But we want to fix this. A heavy silence blanketed them. The young man's face flickered between anger and vulnerability. Can it really be fixed? Can I be forgiven? We're here now, Maggie said, her voice shaking. Look at us, we want to try. We cannot change the past, but we can rebuild our future. Richard reached out, his heart imploring. We can start small. Share your life with us. Let us support you as you discover who you are. Bit by bit, the barriers began crumbling. The tension hanging in the air slowly shifted. The young man finally nodded, tears pricking his eyes. I want to try. I want to know you again. Maggie felt a rush of warmth enveloping her. Then let us take it one day at a time. We can figure this out together. Richard looked at his son, hope pulsing within the tiny cafe as strangers shared stolen glances. The warmth of connection began blossoming like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. Their son's voice cracked, I've been caught in a storm of my own making. I'd lost sight of who I was, but you, he paused, lifting his gaze, you remind me of who I used to be, the boy who built forts and loved family. Please let me come home. Richard's throat tightened, raw emotion coursing through him. Then come back. But come back as you. No masks, no pretenses. As they embraced, it felt like a patchwork of smiles and tears stitched together with love, the binds of family reforging in that very moment. Just then, the cafe door swung open wide as sunlight streamed in, washing away the darkness, banishing shadows of doubt. The ambience shifted, laughter mingled with the clinking of cups, as if the universe itself was celebrating this long-overdue reunion. The rain outside had ceased, the storm replaced by a gentle whisper of hope and promise. In that small cafe on the corner, the transformation had begun. They were no longer lost souls searching for solace, they were a family gathered back at the heart of love. As Richard looked at his son, a radiant smile broke across his face. Hope had become tangible, they had turned the corner, and together they would not only heal but thrive. Now, more than ever, it was time to carry this message forward. Don't wait not even one more second to share this incredible transformation. You need to subscribe now to catch every exclusive story that follows. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these heartwarming tales reach those who need them. And seriously, comment below with your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Every thought matters, and your voice could be the spark that ignites hope in another's heart. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't let anyone miss out on this journey of redemption and love. This is the moment to show your support.